In this video, I'm going to show you how I mix guitars here in GarageBand. But if you don't record guitars or you don't use GarageBand, hang around because you may get some tips about how to get your instrumental mixes sounding their best. So let's go. Hi, my name is Pete and this is Studio Live Today, where I help you create, record and release your best music. And if, like me, you like using GarageBand, then you may get to this stage where you've got some tracks recorded and you want to get them mixed, but maybe you don't know where to start, or maybe you're looking for advice around how to use panning, how to balance your volume, do you need compression and EQ, and what effects should you start considering. So in this video, we're going to dive into all of that and a little bit more. So let's get started now. So what we have here is my Songtember song. This is a track that I've been working on throughout the month of September, where I am writing, recording, and releasing an entire song in the month of September. And it is the 25th of September, so I should be a little bit further along than I am now. But that's a whole different story that we'll talk about another time. For now, let's get in and start getting this track mixed. So let's take a quick tour of the track that we have here. At the very top, we have drums. Now, these drums are called metronome because they are just my metronome. I've just used the virtual drummer to create a metronome track, and it sounds a bit like this. So it's just a very basic groove that I'm able to record to. So I recommend this over and above using just something like the click track. You can tell the difference here. If you're just using a click track like that versus actually having a drum groove, it's a better thing to record to. So when I recorded my guitars, that's what I used, this as my metronome. Let's look at those guitars now. So we've got two acoustic guitars here. We've got two electric guitars and we've got one bass guitar. So let's go through each of these now. The acoustic is what I recorded first, and this is what this track is built around. If you've watched the previous videos, you would have seen that I wrote this song on the acoustic guitar, and it was originally just acoustic and lyrics and vocals, and now I'm building out a full arrangement around that. So let's take a solo and take a listen to what our acoustic guitar sounds like here. We'll hit play. So it does a few different sections. It plays differently in the chorus, which you'll hear in a moment. The way we recorded this, the reason that I haven't actually showed you in this series how I recorded it is it's exactly the same way as I've done pretty much every other time. It's a large diaphragm condenser microphone pointed down at the 12th fret. And I'll link a video up the top and in the description showing you how I record acoustic guitar. But all I did was set up my metronome here, started playing that, and then hit record, and then started recording in my acoustic like so. And you can hear that having that drum beat just makes the playing, well, for me in particular, it makes me play in the pocket, in the groove a lot better. So that's what I did for my first track there. Let's take a look at the second track. This is a complementary track, and you can see if we zoom in here, it's much quieter, and all it's really doing is a little bit of a complement to the bass of that first acoustic guitar track. Let's take a listen to this one. So it's just hanging out on that bottom G note, and if we add back in, so it's just thickening up the guitar a little bit. So originally, just with the acoustic guitar, it sounded a little thin. Although now that I'm listening to it, I'm thinking it sounds okay. So we may not need this guitar, but it's always a good idea when you're tracking, when you're recording your guitars, to add in an additional track, even if you mute it out and it never makes the final mix. Having that option there is really good. And what I do like is when I come in here to my final chorus, I've doubled the guitar using this second acoustic. So if we play this, I'll play it as one guitar, and then I'll bring in the second guitar. So here's one guitar. But let's bring in that second guitar. And it just fills out the mix. And when you hear this with the electric guitars, you'll hear the difference that it makes having those. So there we go. We've recorded two guitars in so far. We then had those two and the drums ready to go, and we recorded along by recording some of our electric guitars. So the first guitar we recorded was this second guitar. Don't ask me why. I've just got the order slightly different here. So here is a guitar that I've recorded. I've used a bunch of different effects here using GarageBand, and this is the beauty part of GarageBand. We've got all of these different amp sims built in, so you can experiment and play around, and this may not be my final tone, but it's about what I wanted it to be. So let's take a listen to what this part sounds like with the electric guitar coming in here. We'll hit play. And I've probably got that a little bit too quiet because I've been changing around there, but let's just turn that volume up and take a bit of a listen. So yes, there's our guitar, and yes, I do need to play with the mixing. I need to get my static mix a little bit louder for that guitar so it complements the other instruments there, or turn these ones down. Remember, you don't always have to turn things up, you can turn things down as well. Let's round this out so we can actually get to the mixing, shall we? We'll grab this second guitar. So that one guitar comes in for the first part, and then as we join the main part of the song, we bring in a second guitar. So let's just play these two electric guitars together here. So we have our original guitar, and then we have a lead guitar over the top. And I'm pretty sure I've named these incorrectly. I've named rhythm lead and lead rhythm, so there you go. I need to correct those, but bear with me for now. So what we need to do is actually balance those out, because what you've heard there is that the actual sounds, yeah, we need to get them balanced. So we probably need to tweak the tone as we go through, but we'll be covering that in future videos. Let's add in the bass guitar now, because the bass was recorded. Oh, and by the way, the reason I'm not showing how I recorded these guitars is I have a video showing how to do that. So you can check the description for a video about how I record guitars. But here is the bass guitar now. We'll hit play on that one. There it is at the start of the track, doing something fairly simple. As we get further into the track, it's doing more mirroring of that original guitar. So if we bring all these together, in fact we won't solo, we'll unsolo, so we've got them all back in. So let's just take a listen to how these are all sounding together at the moment. So it's coming together okay. We've got, again, two acoustic guitars, two electrics, and our bass guitar. But what we need to do now is start sculpting this sound so that they all work well together. And that's what I'm going to show you as we go through right now. Now, ordinarily, I'd leave my mix kind of as it is and just sort of tweak it from here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go faders down. I'm going to put everything down, and then we're going to bring these back in one by one. Now, you notice here that we are missing drums. I haven't recorded the actual drums, and I haven't recorded, well, I have recorded scratch vocals, but I don't have vocals in this mix. So we're going to be mixing the instrumental of this first, and then in future videos, stay tuned, because I'll be recording drums and recording vocals, and I'll be doing those in some actual videos here so that you can follow along. So what I want to do first is bring in the acoustic guitar, because this is really driving the track. So I want to get my acoustic balance right first. And I'm going to go to a louder section. You can see by the waveform where my louder sections are here. So we'll go to a louder section and we'll hit play, and we'll bring this into our mix here now. And that's about right. So I'm leaving it there about 75%. I don't want to max it out here because I'm going to run out of headroom for all of my other instruments. So less is more, especially in GarageBand when it comes to mixing. But in any digital environment, getting your mix at a lower level is usually better. You can always add in gain. You can add in just limiting or compression as you go. But we want to start at a decent sort of level there. Now, in terms of this actual sound, the one thing that's poking out to me, and this is the case for a lot of acoustic guitars, is we've got a little bit too much in the treble range there. If we just take a listen, it's a little bit twangy for my liking, so let's just apply a little quick bit of EQ. We'll come in here to the plugins and EQ section under our mixer icon. We'll go to our visual EQ, and we probably just want to tame that down a little bit. Let's just hit play. There's the sound if we turn it up. So So I'm just going to take a little bit off the top end like that just for now, just because it's going to make me happier. There is some compression on this with the default that we have here, and there's also some track reverb on here with the default nice room sound. So they both sound okay. Let's just play with this compressor for a moment and make sure that the compression settings are not hurting the song. So let's hit play. We'll turn it off and back on. So it's not actually really compressing anything. We'll just turn it down and see if we can actually get some compression happening here. So we'll just leave it there with a little bit of light compression on there for now. So there's our acoustic guitar sound. Now I mentioned this second guitar that we brought in here. This is really just to thicken up this guitar a little bit. I'm not sure that we'll need it all the way through, but let's just bring it into the mix and see how it sounds here. We'll hit play. Okay, so that's sounding okay. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to put the volume of that one a little bit lower than this one, and I'm going to actually come in here to my plugins and EQ, and for this one, for now, I'm just going to turn off the track reverb and the compressor just to make it a bit more of a dry sound. Let's take a listen. Just so it sort of sits underneath there without adding a whole bunch of additional effects. If we play them together. There, I think that's pretty nicely balanced for now. So we're going to go with that. Now, what I'm going to bring in next is actually the bass, because I want to make sure that the bass is sitting nicely with the two acoustic guitars. And then, because the electric guitars are both sort of crunchy, distorted guitars, we need to be very careful because we don't want to lose. You can very easily go too loud on your distorted guitars and completely wipe out your acoustics in the choruses, and that's not going to sound good. So let's grab the bass guitar and we will solo this one and bring this up into the mix to join our acoustic guitars. In fact, we'll do it further down here where it's a little bit louder so we get our balance right. We'll hit play. So that's going to do for now. It may have to come up in the mix a little bit later on, but the key to bass is that when I hear songs that are too distracting with their bass, it's usually because people have basses that are sitting up here, which might sound cool at the time, but it can be really easy to overload your bass, and especially for people listening on some of the more bass-hyped headphones and speakers and Bluetooth speakers that have a lot of bass, if you have too much bass in your track, it's not going to translate well, especially if you're mixing on headphones. Be really careful that you don't add in too much bass or even too little bass. Getting bass balanced is one of the hardest things to do. So we're going to leave it at that for now. In terms of our mix that we have here, or the plugins and effects, and EQ on our bass, we don't really have anything at the moment. We've got our EQ, but it's completely flat there. We may want to change that or add in some EQ as we go along, and we don't have any compressor, so maybe we'll just turn the compressor on just to flatten out this bass a little bit. We'll just unsolo these other couple and come back and listen. It's actually pretty even as it is, but we can play with that. Yeah, it's actually not bad. So the bass has been recorded okay, in my humble opinion. You might look at that and go, that's pretty low bass. But yeah, again, I like to record things at a lower volume. It tends to work better for me, and I don't have the problems of clipping, which is a bad thing. If you're going over and distorting your track, that's not a good thing to do. So there is my bass. There is my acoustics. Let's now bring in the first of these electric guitars. Now, I played around a lot with the exact tone that I'm using here, and eventually I decided on, what tone did I decide on in the end? Click over to the wrong one. I went with a Brit pop tone. Yes, I did. And then I added in some vintage drive and some, got the compressor on there, and I've got a bit of drive on this as well. So I'm using the English combo amp here with a bit of drive on there, and I can continue to play around with this and tweak it. Once I get the sound about right, I don't tend to change it a lot. but I do want to make sure that it's going to fit the song. Let's come in here and take a listen to this, and we'll come into this section here, and we'll hit play, and we'll bring in this guitar sound. Alright, so that's sounding about right in that section. Let's come into a bit where we're actually playing a little bit louder and hit play. So not bad, we're still just complementing our acoustic guitar. We'll come down a little bit further and hit play. Not bad. So I tend to, again, start lower, and if I do need to add volume, it's easier to add volume if you're too low on a track than it is to start removing volume from a bunch of different tracks. So I'm going to start lower and then ease my way up as we go. So we're going to go with that for now. Now, what I'll generally do at this point is I'll start thinking panning. So panning is the other important part of mixing, and you'll notice I haven't even touched effects yet, apart from a bit of compression, but I want to get my static mix sounding good before we start playing with too many effects. But panning is something I do want to start thinking about, the stereo spectrum. So let's tap on our mixer up the top here. We're going to come down to plug, no, we don't have to. We're going to go to panning at the top here. So this guitar here playing throughout, I can either choose to put on the left or the right. I'll go the right to start with, and I won't go all the way right. I'll go sort of 75% right to get a bit of a stereo spectrum. So if we hit play on this now, what you're hearing there is you're going to hear more of the guitar because it's going to be separated out. It's pushed to the right while our acoustic is right up the middle as our main instrument. So this is why, again, I dial the volume down more than you'd think, because as soon as you separate it in the stereo field, it sounds a lot louder when it's sitting over on the right by itself than it does when it's sitting down the middle with your bass and your acoustic and what will be the drums eventually as well. So that is what we'll do originally. And we'll grab this other guitar, and before we even add it in, let's do a similar panning move, but we'll do a complementary panning to about the same level on our left here. So what we're going to do now is bring in this second guitar. We'll come to a section where we've got, did I just move that? A trap there is sometimes you're tapping around and you'll just move, or you'll cut, or you'll do something weird. Let's come in here and take a listen to this additional guitar, and I'll dial in this second lead guitar. You'll hear it come in over on the left-hand side. So you can hear there how they are actually complementing each other. So if let's just bring these two electric guitars in. We'll unsolo the other tracks. And if we just take a listen to just the two electric guitars, what we should find is a nice balance both in volume and also in the stereo spectrum so that we get a balanced final mix. Let's hit play. And what you'll also notice is I'm using complementary, or not actually, I'm using tones here that are going to contrast with each other and therefore complement the actual song. So if we listen to this track here, that's sort of our lead tone, and then we listen to our rhythm tone and bring them together. So the idea with guitars is you generally want to have, if you've got two guitars, you want them to sound different, yeah? You want them to be either a different guitar, so use a Les Paul on one and a Strat copy on the other, or if you've only got one guitar, or you're lazy like me and you record them both with one guitar, use different styles of amps here. And it can be as simple as looking at these amps and going, yep, that one looks different to that one. Or if you're an amp nerd and you want to go into all the details and the settings, you can do that. But really, all we've got a bit more of a crunchier rhythm sound, so a little bit grungier, more distorted rhythm sound, and we've got a slightly cleaner a little bit more, still distorted, but a little bit cleaner sound for that higher sound. And together, They complement each other quite well. The other thing we can do with guitars is some EQ moves. And what you generally want to do with EQ on guitars, as we mentioned before, we've got this one, which is our lead, which what we would probably want is if we come into plugins and EQ and our visual EQ here, we would want to have more in sort of the hi-hat range. So if we say did a treble, if we did a move here, you might want to boost up something around about here. Let's just, we'll solo this one actually. Solo that and come in here to our EQ, and if we hit play on this, you can hear that frequency there. I mean, we don't want that much of it, but that's around the sort of range that we might want to make a boost on this one. So if we just boost that, but instead of doing it massively like that, let's just boost it, say, around about 3.5 dB, give it a decent sort of boost there. And you're probably ahead of me on this one, but what we would then do is do similarly, just to carve out, because we wanted to boost that, what we would do here is we would bring this one and we would actually drop it at around about that same, by around about the same amount, just so that we get a little bit of space, we bring them together. You can hear we've just got that slightly more hyped treble on our lead guitar, and then, which is actually called rhythm here. I know, I'm confusing. And then our rhythm guitar can complement that. So let's bring these together just with these few little moves that we've made. We'll bring all of these together and see what our mix is sounding like at the moment. We'll come in here to our final chorus here, which is where we're at actually, because this is a good place, because this is where everything's going to be its loudest, and we need to make sure our balance is sounding right. So let's take a listen now. So if anything, these guitars are probably still a little loud. So if we just bring these down a little tiny bit, around about like that. Yeah, cool. Just to let our acoustic guitar come through, because again, that is our main instrument. We want these to be complementary. We don't want them to overload and overpower the acoustic guitar. So there we go. That is our mix so far. As we continue on, I'll show you some other things about mixing, such as using the effects that we have here, using our master effects, our echo and our reverb, which can really glue a track together. We'll be doing more with EQ and compression. And of course, we will be recording and mixing vocals and drums on this track, which should be a lot of fun. So hang around for those. Make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking or tapping on the Studio Live Today icon in the top right corner so you don't miss any of the future videos. Let me know what you think of this one. If you've got your opinion, drop it in the comments. I'm always down there chatting to you. Love to hear what you have to say, and I'll see you on the next video.